I am still. I was on mute. Not anymore. Um, there we go. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to watch the movies, guys. I hope you enjoyed them. There's a couple other choices with "It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To" Choose Your Own Adventures that you did not get a chance to see tonight. So if you are interested in seeing the rest of those, as well as watching the movie from start to finish as a feature length, you can pick up the 2-disc set right now at scotchworthy.com, as well as DVDs for A Chance in Hell, which was the World War II Nazi zombie movie that we had on before this. So I'll let the questions begin, if there are any. There aren't any. Ah. Yeah, I never. I mean, I'm older, so I didn't read any of the Goosebumps, Choose Your Own Adventures that R.L. Stine did. I was more into the Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 70s and 80s. My favorite one was one called Space Vampires, which was, I don't know, it was probably a bag of shit, but I just always thought it was such a cool concept, being able to kind of go and do your own thing and pick which direction the characters go. And with the advent of DVD technology, you can pretty much do whatever you want with DVD menus. And so when I created "It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To," I was pretty much, wanting to just do something that was my calling card to get my name out there and get Scotchworthy Productions' name out there. I just graduated from Tom Savini Special Effects School, and I didn't think that we could make a feature because it's so long. So I wrote a 45-page script and thought, well, if I don't want to just make a generalized short film, let's do something different and let's make it a choose your own adventure. And so I wrote all these extra tangents to the story, and that's pretty much how it all came together. And then as we continued working on the movie over the next few months, and then during the pickup shots, which we did a year after we shot principal photography, the movie ended up becoming a feature-length film. And I'm glad it did, because otherwise I don't feel like it would have been showcased nearly as much as it has on places like Netflix and Uverse TV on demand and stuff like that. So let's see. The next question, and I'm kind of freaked out here because it's on like a 6-second video delay, and I've got everything on my TV. How'd you devise the scripts for each choice? Honestly, I don't even know. I just kind of started working on the general idea for the film. My roommate Steve Weimer and my partner at the time, Christopher Patrick, were kind of helping me develop the story. And again, it was just kind of like, well, what can you do at different points? There was like 1 or 2 points in the movie that I had these specific plot shifts, where you could either go one way or the other. And so I worked off of those big ones to start with, like when she's at the front door, does she fight the creature? Does she find another way out? And there was one other one, I think, right at the beginning, obviously, when she shows up and chooses whether to stay on the porch, which you haven't seen what happens there, or if she goes and finds another way in, which leads her to the basement. We basically started then just coming up with random choices after that. The window was just an option where it's like, well, what else can we do? Let's throw the window option in there and shit like that. And it just kind of added to the movie again. Some of them are pretty quick and easy. They're kind of cop-outs, as I would call them. But the fact that this was, at the time that I produced this was the first ever choose your own adventure feature-length movie that wasn't for like a board game or anything like that. So we were just really trying to get something out there that was different and unique. And subsequently, after this film was finished, Return to House on Haunted Hill came out, where the Blu-ray version has a choose your own adventure option on it, which is kind of cool. but it doesn't really change the movie. It just changes the deaths around. And Final Destination 3 had a special feature on the DVD that did the same thing. So we can still tout that we're the first of the kind. But it was fun mentioning with the scripts. It was pretty fun because the actors, even though they knew it was a choose your own adventure film, they never really knew what scene we were shooting. So a lot of times, you know, I'd be saying, oh, well, we're shooting this scene, and they wouldn't know if we were part of the adventures or if we were part of the feature itself. And so they would get confused because at one point they're getting murdered, and then the next point they're alive again, and they didn't really understand that. Not to mention we only had one costume for every character, so if they were getting bloody in one scene, we had to make sure that the continuity was correct. It was a pain in the ass. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, the scenes that were used for the Choose Your Own Adventure, were they originally in the script and cut, or was the plan for this from the get-go? Yeah, as I said earlier, you know, the Choose Your Own Adventure options was something that I wanted to do from the first place. As I said, I had a short film from the script. It was like 45 pages long, and as I wrote it and was looking at it, I was just like, you know, I don't have the time or money to make a feature, even though I ended up doing that anyway. But I didn't want to just have a short film because so many people make short films and nothing ever comes of them. So I had to do something unique that would get me noticed, and especially in you know, my generation of independent filmmakers, there's so many people doing it nowadays because it's so easy to make a movie with digital cinema equipment. And so I had to do something that helped me stand out. And fortunately, the Choose Your Own Adventure option is to this day still something that catches people's attention when they're walking past the table at a convention and we're trying to sell the movies or stuff like that, you know. It caught some people's attention on the show tonight, I noticed. So, you know, definitely appreciate that. How long did it take to shoot the film? We started principal photography. I wrote the script in the summer of 2005 while I was going to Tom Savini Special Effects School. And we shot some scenes in the fall of 2005, but only really spent like a day or two doing it. And then we got back into production pretty hardcore in the middle of February of 2006. We ended maybe 2 weeks before Easter. I moved back to Chicago and edited the film, and then determined that we needed pickup shots to turn it into a feature-length film, elaborate on the story a little bit. We also wanted to get the cameo, so we got Tom Savini to do the cameo, and we also added all the nudity as well as a bunch of the extra death scenes in all the pickups. And those were all done first in January of 2007, and then we did a week in Pittsburgh, and then we did another week of pickups in the summer of 2007, and released the film September of 2007 at the Illinois International Film Festival, where it won Audience Choice Award. And it was released on DVD a couple months later, and we premiered it at the Fangoria Horror Convention in Chicago in February of 2008. And it's been selling ever since. The comic book transitions, was that inspired from Creepshow and maybe Trick or Treat, or just off your own head? It totally inspired off of Creepshow. Trick or Treat did not even exist at the time that I made this film. So I really use, I'm a huge fan of 70s and 80s horror films, especially creature flicks, haunted house movies. So, you know, it was just natural for me and my friends to kind of come up with a what do you want to call it? A creature 80s style, you know, horror flick. And so that's kind of what we ended up doing. And, you know, since all we had was work lights from Home Depot, the 500-watt work lights, and theater gels to work with, and I had never lit anything professionally before, which you can probably tell looking at it. So I pretty much had to rely on the fact that the movie was already going to be theatrically lit. So it kind of played into the whole concept of doing a comic book style film. Plus, it's kind of a campy movie. I mean, if people watch this film and expect it to be entirely serious, then they're not watching the right horror film. It's campy, and it's intentionally campy, but there's still some good gore in it and some good scares, I'm hoping. So, you know, I feel like that's where we kind of got the whole Creepshow feel. I wanted it to have a feel of the original Evil Dead, but with better special effects, because that's what I always hated about the first Evil Dead, and a lot like Night of the Demons too. Obviously, I feel like that film just has a really good story to it. It's fun, you know. There's not much to it. It's kids partying in an abandoned haunted house, and they start turning into monsters. So that's kind of where we got this whole concept from, and you know, the comic book panels I think kind of worked out and lended to the feel of it. So let's see. Indie Horror asks, the Choose Your Own Adventure thing clearly drew me in at the Fangoria in 2008, which is when I originally met Robert. You know, which is so great about the independent horror community is that, you know, I haven't been promoting my movies at conventions since, you know, I went to one or two over the last few years, but primarily I stopped after 2009 and took a few years off to work on A Chance in Hell and personal stuff. And going back to Cincinnati Horror Hound last month and seeing a bunch of people who hadn't seen us in 5 years, it was pretty badass to have returning fans come and pick up A Chance in Hell on DVD, as well as get the new edition of It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want to. But getting back to his question, you know, how is working with Tom Savini? Did he just come in, shoot a scene, and take off, or did he offer any suggestions or thoughts on making my first film? You know, I got to be completely honest. You know, you talk to anybody in the horror community, and Tom definitely does not have the best reputation with fans, and I think it's just because he doesn't really take the time to show the fans that he cares about the fact that they're his fans, which I think is terrible. You know, I worked with Sid Haig on my last film, High on the Hog, and Sid, he was at the Cincinnati Horror Hound convention, and it's like the guy has hour-long lines for autographs because he's cool, because he talks to his fans, and you know, he jokes with them and tells them stories, and I think that's what people really, you know, want. They want to feel like they're accepted by these people that they idolize or watch on television and at the theaters. And Tom just doesn't really seem to do that. And I've noticed it both at school as well as at the conventions. But I got to be honest, he was pretty cool to work with. You know, I was a little disappointed, and I'm still disappointed that being the only student that I know of from the school who has made a feature-length film and taken it out after the school and sold it and had it on Netflix and stuff. I would have thought that not just Tom Savini, but that the school too would be a little more supportive of, you know, getting the word out there. And unfortunately, at this point, you know, it doesn't really seem like they have done much in the way of promoting the stuff, other than, you know, the teachers there who were my teachers, or Chris, who, you know, helped me make this movie. They promote it with word of mouth. But yeah, you know, it'd be nice if Tom was a little more supportive. You know, I would love it if he'd show some of this stuff to Robert Rodriguez, since they're friends. But I also don't expect it, and I never really did. I just hoped. But when he was on set, you know, it was hard to get him there. But once he was there, it was pretty awesome having him on set. He really brought up the overall level of enthusiasm, and he was only there for like 4 hours. But he offered suggestions of what he wanted to do with his character, and you know, everybody was just excited because here's this, you know, name, this person that we've seen in stuff, that's worked on movies since we were kids, you know, working on our film. And so yeah, it was really cool in that regard. Let's see. The cinematography was great. As a director, thank you, by the way. As a director, from a technical standpoint, what do you feel is important to devote a limited budget to? Filming, sound quality, etc. Well, you know, honestly, I think everything is important. I think that the biggest problem, in my opinion, and I'm very hypocritical when I say this, because It's My Party I made with zero experience, zero time, and zero money. I spent my life savings producing the film, and I was fortunate enough to have a group of friends and that helped out as the crew and as the cast to make that movie possible. All of us were still going to school, working jobs, and basically shooting this during our free time. And so I think that that's the most important thing, is finding people that are passionate about making a good movie and that are passionate about your script. Because if people are just doing it for the money, then they're not working at the right tier. Um, for filmmaking. You know, if you want to do independent films, especially in the horror genre, you're not going to be making a lot of money until you develop a reputation along the likes of somebody like Ty West or Adam Weingart and these guys who are making, you know, Adam Green, who's doing Hatchet and stuff like that. You have to expect to kind of be in the trenches and get dirty for a while. You know, we had people on the crew who were doing everything from gaffing to boom miking to acting in the movie. You know, Ben Tramer, which was a nod to Halloween, if anybody didn't catch that. He was the guy dressed in kind of the blue blocker sunglasses driving the car where all the stoners were outside the house. And that's my roommate, Steve Weimer, who was not only a producer on the film, but he was like 50 different sets of hands on set every single day. He was by far, you know, not to shoot anybody else down, but by far the most dedicated person. And those are the people that you want, is the people who aren't really looking for the money, but they're looking just to be a part of something cool, and making sure that you have enough time uh, to allocate towards all the important facets of a production. You know, they always say you can do something fast, cheap, or well, and you can pick two of the three. And a lot of times independent films are made cheap, fast, and they don't turn out well. And I don't think that my movies are amazing by any means, but I definitely think that the reason why Scotchworthy has maintained a reputation over the last 5 years, the reason why we have almost a dozen festival awards under our belt to this date, and the reason why we have repeat fans is because we take the time to develop quality in our work. And, you know, I think that that really goes a long way. I think that the cinematography and a good camera is very important. And fortunately, you can shoot things on DSLR now that will look 50 times better than It's My Party looked. Because that was shot on a Canon XL2. That was right before HD kind of became the new thing. And, you know, so you can spend a couple $1,000s or rent a 5D or a 7D and make a great looking movie. Sound quality is very important. The sound in It's My Party was horrible. And thankfully Roderick Magsino, who did all the sound on it, was able to salvage a lot of the sound. But again, working with no experience, we didn't know shit about what we were doing. It was just hold the mic as close to the person's mouth as you can. But I'll tell you what, people watching this, obviously you like horror films. The main thing with the horror film is good special effects, or don't show it. You know, you look at a movie like Lovely Molly, that the guy who did, Eduardo Sanchez, who did Blair Witch Project, incredible film, and very scary, and there's barely any violence or gore or anything in it at all. It's all left to the imagination of the viewer. So if you're gonna do special effects and showcase them, you need to do them right, and you need to hire a professional crew. So that's what I would say, is pretty much everything is important. Without good production design, a movie looks like shit. Let's see. What is your favorite role in making a movie? And as an independent filmmaker, do you have to do many at a time, or do you delegate? By the way, Darren, how's it going? Hope you're doing well, man. Haven't seen you in a while. My favorite role in making the movie is being on set. Clearly, yeah, you have to, as an independent filmmaker, you have to be multitasking to the max, which is unfortunate because I hate it. I've had to produce everything that I've done, and I've had some incredible people help over the years with the production and the organization. But overall, the thing I've always complained about has been primarily that I spend too much time producing the movie and not enough time focusing on directing. And so afterwards, when I'm sitting in front of my computer editing, or when I'm watching it in the theater with other people, I cringe because there's stuff that I wanted to get, but I didn't get the right camera angle, or I didn't get, I didn't get it in the right amount of takes. So, it's tough when you have to do multiple things, and that's why I keep saying it's important to have a good group of people that you surround yourself with. And I and Scotchworthy are very fortunate to have an incredible group of people that are the most dedicated filmmakers you could ask for. And they never harp and they never bitch, and it's just a good time. We have fun on set. Um, all the movies that we've worked on together, and there's a good handful now with the people that I currently work with. Everything that we've done just keeps getting better and better, and it's because we work well together and we grow together. And so, yeah, I definitely think that being on set is, to answer your question, is my favorite aspect of it. I'm going down next month to work on a movie with my friend Brian, and I can't wait just because I want to be on set. And we're shooting stuff for Chop Shop, which is the anthology horror film that we're working on in a couple of weeks, and I can't wait because we're going to be on set again. It's sitting in front of the computer that bores me. Good story and good, if not well placed, for me. Yeah, sounds like you guys are kind of agreeing with me on some of this stuff. What inspired me to shoot A Chance in Hell regarding the story in particular? And yes, I'm talking about Brian Wolford from Drunken Zombie. What inspired me to do A Chance in Hell is Mitch Martinez, who was my director of photography on A Chance in Hell. He did the second set of pickup shots for It's My Party, the stuff with Tom Savini, the stuff with all the nude scenes, and the deaths at the end of the movie, which you guys didn't see tonight because we didn't play the real ending of the film. So again, if you haven't seen it, make sure you go to scotchworthy.com and pick up a copy of the movie. It's only $10 plus $4 for shipping, so it's definitely worth it. You get the feature and the adventures on the DVDs. But as I was saying, his work was so good on It's My Party, and he was so generous in terms of donating his time to be a part of it just because he wanted to work with us, that I was jumping at the opportunity to work with him on something again. And it's tough because Mitch lives in Philadelphia and I'm in Chicago, so there's 13 hours between us. But he called me up one day in 2009 and was just like, I want to shoot something. I've been doing a bunch of commercials and music videos, and I'm just tired of doing non-creative things, industrial videos and stuff. And so he said, if you want to do a trailer for one of your films, if you want to shoot a short film or something, I'll come out to Chicago for a week and let's shoot something. And so at the time I was playing a lot of Call of Duty, World at War. They have the Nazi zombie levels on that. And so my friend John, who was playing Call of Duty with me as a writer, and we've been talking about working on some stuff together, and we did a short film called Vindigo that nobody has ever seen because it's not finished yet. We're going to put it together and put it on a short film DVD that'll come out in a few months here. But we talked about getting together and writing a World War II Nazi zombie movie. And the biggest thing I've always hated about Nazi zombie movies, as anybody will know who's heard me talk, is that all the Nazi zombie movies up until A Chance in Hell took place in modern times. Dead Snow, Zombie Lake, Shockwaves, the list goes on. And I always thought it was bullshit that it's like, because they didn't want to take the time to develop proper production design by getting authentic weapons and uniforms and stuff, they decided to make this movie in modern times. And Nazi zombies are great villains for a movie because nobody likes either of them. And I had a guy who was a regular at the bar that I bartend at who was like, hey, if you ever need to borrow any of my stuff, I've got a bunch of World War II stuff. And I come to find out that he's been collecting since the 1960s and has a truckload of uniforms, equipment, and weapons, authentic weapons that he let us use in this movie just to showcase his collection. And so we were very fortunate to use a lot of his stuff, as well as have a great art department. Amy Farrow came in and basically, every day turned each scene into a 1940s factory. And Scott Fontaine, who did all my wardrobe stuff, was able to go to thrift stores and buy clothing and make it look like uniforms and the concentration camp, wardrobe and stuff. So it all just came together really well. And Johnny and I are definitely proud of it, and are hoping to turn it into a feature-length film someday with some form of budget, if we can get it. What are your influences for the stories you want to put on screen, be it personal experiences, movies, or directors that influenced you? Well, let's see. In terms of influences, I've always been a big fan of the horror genre. Since I was a kid, like I said, I used to read the horror books when I was a kid, from the Choose Your Own Adventures. The horror ones always got me. I mean, even when I was like 5 years old, my favorite Berenstain Bears book was the In the Dark one, or Afraid of the Dark one. So I've always been a nut for the horror genre. And when I finally started getting into watching movies with my dad and my aunts and uncles, House and Psycho and Child's Play and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween were like these movies that just totally influenced the shit out of me. And John Carpenter is definitely my idol. I know a lot of his stuff lately has kind of sucked, but his earlier films like Big Trouble in Little China and The Fog and The Thing, which is my favorite movie, Halloween, Prince of Darkness, They Live. I mean, the guy's got a catalog of films that totally inspired me to create the types of stories that I create. I'm such a big fan of films in general, and I'm such a big fan of horror films specifically, that I'll watch anything, but the things that really catch my attention are the movies that actually involve a little bit of adventure. I'm not a big fan of movies like Saw, because Saws are all about the gore. They're not, and I mean, the story's cool in them. They've got cool twists, but it's like a bunch of people trapped in a room, and they got to escape without dying. And movies like that, I'm just not a fan of, because there isn't anything to them. It's there's no set design, there's no props, it's just not expansive enough. Whereas you look at a movie like Big Trouble in Little China, and he created an entire universe with that movie, and movies like The Thing, it was all contained to one location primarily, but he created such great suspense, and the special effects are so damn good that it takes away from the fact that you don't mind so much that you're holed up in one location, and that the scenery never really changes. I'm really big into visually stimulating stuff. So photography, I don't have specific artists that I'm most interested in, but I just really like visual film. Stanley Kubrick's stuff. Like I said, John Carpenter's a big one. I like a lot of Wes Craven's stuff. But mostly his supernatural stuff. I'm not big into Hills Have Eyes or Last House on the Left. So yeah, I'd say that's mostly what has influenced me. In terms of personal experiences, I've never seen a ghost. I've never had a monster chase after me, or any weird shit like that. I don't lead a traumatized childhood. So I'm pretty fortunate to, in my opinion, lead a pretty normal life. I just happen to be a big fan of horror films, and fortunate enough to have the friends to make good movies with, and hopefully have enough fans out there that want to continue supporting what we do. So, let's see. Have you had any crazy on-set stories? Oh, yeah. Well, on It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To, I went to school with this guy, and me and a mutual friend of mine had talked about shooting a movie. We just said, fuck it, let's just get a home video camera and let's go shoot a movie. Who cares? And so, my big thing at special effects school was I'm in school with 80 different students, and everybody's taking still photos of all their work. And I just thought, it's like, we're doing makeup for movies and nobody's taking movies of their work. So I started trying to come up with a concept to make a movie so that you could see the special effects in action. And so this guy, Nate, and I started talking about different ideas. and Nate knew the guy who owned the house. Well, didn't own, but was renting the house that we shot It's My Party in. And so he's like, hey, check out this great old house. It's an abandoned funeral parlor. This guy's renting it and trying to fix it up. And we can totally shoot the movie in there. He's cool about it. So we go in there and we check it out, and it's perfect location. So I start working on It's My Party script around that house as a location. He's the guy who's renting the place is super enthusiastic, excited about us shooting a movie there. Well, we get into shooting the movie, and then all of a sudden, the shit hits the fan, and he doesn't want to help us anymore. He never returns my phone calls. The power barely worked in the house. There was no plumbing in the house. There was no heating in the house. So it just was a total disaster. And the fact that everybody actually sat there and hung out shooting the movie with me till the end blows my mind. And I don't know if it's because they basically said, well, we're 5 days in, we might as well finish it out, or if they actually thought that the movie was going to be cool, because I'm surprised nobody ever walked off and said, fuck this movie. Because there were definitely plenty of occasions where that could have happened. On the shooting of the trailer for The Storm, which is our roller derby alien movie that we're trying to get produced, we just need to find funding for it. We were out in a field, a cornfield, which, the corn wasn't in it because it was February. So we're in this muddy ass field in the beginning of February, shooting this meteorite that has crashed down to Earth. And so the meteorite's on fire. There's fire around it. There's smoke billowing up. We've got the camera on a dolly track. Everybody's huddled around this fire. And my special effects guy, Jason Kane, was making the fire green by adding some sort of alcohol to it to burn green. And so he had all these canisters of alcohol up on the road in front of one of the cars, and all these tins that he was mixing it in. And then there's these green fire, flames burning in this cornfield. And this police officer at 2 a.m. decides to drive down the road to check things out, and stops. And so, me and one of the other producers kind of walk up to the cop car, and he gets out of the car and he's like, hands where I can see them. And he's like, I'm pretty sure that, you might have heard like the holster start to unclip, like he was getting his gun ready. And he apparently thought that we were huffing paint chemicals or some shit in the field, which is beyond me considering it was freezing ass cold out. But once he walked over and saw the camera and everything, he realized that we were just shooting a movie and was cool. But that was about the scariest thing. Yeah. So we've had some pretty crazy things. I'm very fortunate enough, and I'm knocking on wood, that we've never had any serious injuries on set. I've had people get cut. I've had people fall and get bruised, but nobody has ever gotten seriously injured. Chop shop. Can't really say anything crazy happened in that, although that was pretty fun because when we got Lee Rose, who plays the grandma in Grandma O'Malley's Pantry, when we got her in her makeup, which is pretty awesome. It basically, she's a ghoul, and the makeup looks like she took her skin and just pulled her skin over her head and reveals the face, the ghoul face that she has underneath her human skin. And so she's got like this hoodie of flesh on, and she's got this crazy ass face and these contacts in and these sharp teeth, and she's chasing the little girl through this basement that is darkly lit with all these shelves, and we built this basement to look like a labyrinth of shelving units. And so she starts chasing the little girl through the basement, and the little girl's just screaming her eyes out. And when we say cut, the little girl won't stop crying, and it's because she was actually scared of this woman in the makeup. So stuff like that's fun, and I think that's why I love horror films so much, just because it's such a, comedies are fun too, but ultimately with a horror film, people are so fascinated by the special effects, and it's so much fun when you get to do death scenes and stuff that I just really enjoy that, and I know everybody else does too. So, are there any other questions? I know we lost a couple of the viewers here. We're down to 9. I appreciate you guys sticking with me here. Like I said, you can go to scotchworthy.com which is like a bottle of scotch and the word worthy, but they're put together, Scotch Worthy. You can pick up any of our movies there. It's My Party, I'll Die If I Want to, as well as A Chance in Hell. We also have merchandise like T-shirts, posters, stuff like that. Also join our newsletter so you can get bi-weekly updates on what we've got going on. We have 2 movies coming out here in the next couple of months. High on the Hog is a crime drama. It's starring Sid Haig, Joe Estevez, and Robert Zadar. It's a pretty cool movie. It's very much like a Charles Manson family meets somewhat of a grindhouse flick, kind of Drive a little bit. Some people have said it kind of reminds them a little bit of Red State. I don't think it's as intense as Red State, but there's definitely some cool stuff in it and really great acting and everything. And then we've got Chop Shop, which is our horror anthology. Me and 3 other directors from the Chicagoland area put together Chop Shop. We each did 4 short films or a short film, so there's 4 of them, and then we're directing the wraparound story in June that'll tie all the movies together. And that's kind of our answer to the whole VHS 26 or ABCs of Death string that have come out lately. And I think people are really going to get a kick out of those. Let's see. What are we looking at here? What advice would you give to a first-time independent filmmaker? I think that the biggest piece of advice for anybody out there who wants to make a movie is talk to people who know what to do. Don't just run out there and do it yourself. That was one of my biggest mistakes, and I'm fortunate enough to have gotten It's My Party out there. But It's My Party with so many trials and tribulations and heartaches, and it was just such a pain in the ass to do that even though I loved every second of shooting that movie, it was tough. It was really tough and really stressful. So I think that going and talking to somebody who's done it before and asking them for advice is a good idea. Even hiring them to produce the film or to consult is a good idea. That's money well spent. And somebody that is at a level like myself or some of the directors that I know who have been doing it for a few years and have a movie or 2 under their belt, you go to them and say, look, I'll give you $500 and make you a producer if you're willing to jump on this movie and help me, organize it. People would jump at the opportunity just to be a part of another movie, especially if they like the script. I think that pre-production is the most important thing in the world. You can never have enough time for pre-production, and I think it's important that you utilize it. I myself tend to really bite the bullet when it comes to pre-production, and sometimes I don't always take the right amount of time, getting everything organized and structured and keeping an eye on, but not micromanaging all my departments. And then you get to set, and all of a sudden you've got to hurry to get something done, and then it doesn't look as good. Or if you don't have your shot list as a director, if your shot list isn't organized beforehand, or you didn't do storyboards, and you and your director of photography aren't on the same page, then your shots aren't going to look good, or they're not going to look the way you wanted them to. And the biggest thing is you're going to waste time. And when you're working on a movie where you're especially not paying people, you don't get much patience from people because they want it to get done and they want it to look good. And if they see you wasting time with 36 takes and shit like that, they're not going to be there to support you the next day. And if you are paying people money, if you're fortunate enough to get a budget for your film, then chances are those people can't work overtime unless you want to pay them time and a half or double time or triple time. And so that's really tough too. So I'd say my biggest piece of advice is talk to somebody who knows what to do. Email me. Find me on Facebook, like Scotchworthy Productions on Facebook, and ask me questions. I'm always willing to email somebody responses just because I'm looking for the support too. It's all about networking. Whoever says that filmmaking is a one-man gig is probably never said anything like that before, because I think that it's all about the community that you're working in as to the degree of your success. So, and get a good group of people surrounding you. I've said that 3 or 4 times already. I think that that's very important. Don't just go out to make a movie by yourself, or don't just sit there with a friend of yours and say, well, the two of us are going to make a movie. You know, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I highly recommend getting a cameraman who knows how to use a camera, a sound guy who has proper sound equipment. You know, I shot It's My Party with a Canon XL2, had never shot with one before, read the manual, watched a few things on YouTube about it, and shot because my DP backed out 3 weeks before we were going to shoot the movie. So I had to shoot it on my own. And I don't think it looks terrible, but I didn't know the first thing about gain or, you know, shutter speed. And so half the movie looks stuttery, like all the exterior shots, because, excuse me, because I had the shutter speed bumped all the way down to 1/24th. And if I would have known that you're not supposed to do that, the movie would have looked better. So, you know, get a knowledgeable crew around you. Film students are great as long as they're not pretentious little assholes like a lot of them are. And, you know, spend time working on production design. I cannot stress to you enough how much I despise watching a movie that takes place in a room like this. White walls, nothing decorated. There's, you know, some of the best movies are the ones that they take the time to, you know, organize colors, and the wardrobe matches the set pieces. The makeup and the hair matches the wardrobe. Take the time to do that shit, because that's what's going to make your movie stand out compared to other people's movies. A lot of the movies that I see when I go to conventions, I'll swap movies with other filmmakers, or I'll buy their movies because I want to support independent film. And I get excited because they spend all this time making great cover designs for their movies and poster artwork and stuff, which is good advice too. Market your movie well. But it's like you put the movie in the DVD player and you're watching and you're like, God, this movie looks fucking terrible. And I don't mean to be critical, but, you know, as a fan, I want to watch a good movie. I want to be entertained. I don't want to watch something that was shot on a home video camera that, you know, you can't see anything because they're running around the woods at night and there's no lights. You know, I'm a fan. I want to spend $15 and find the next independent horror great film, but I don't want to spend $15 and get a bag of shit, which is a lot of times what happens. Sorry for being so critical. All right, I'm ranting now. What's next? Have you seen any indie horror films in the past year, and do you have any you would recommend? And how come I haven't seen any questions from Walsh K6079 yet? We're glad you're part of this, but I'm interested if you have any questions, man, or woman, whatever you are. Yeah, you know, I've seen a lot of really good independent horror films recently. Dead Weight, which I know you showcased on here, is made by my friend John Pata. And John and his co-director did such an incredible job just developing an atmosphere, in my opinion, with that movie. So I really recommend Dead Weight to people. You know, I just watched one of the other directors on Chop Shop, Jose Gomez, did a film called Plastic that was just released on DVD a couple months ago. And Plastic is definitely worth checking out. It's about a serial killer, very reminiscent of kind of like John Wayne Gacy kind of meets Jeffrey Dahmer. And it's a really cool movie, really good job. At the last convention, I picked up Crossbearer, which was interesting. You know, it's not. I don't know. I liked it. I was entertained by it. It had some cool gore in it and everything. So it's worth checking out. At least watch the trailer. I really enjoyed The Orphan Killer, which, I mean, like the only thing that I did not like about that movie was the music. It had like this death metal soundtrack to it that was not loud enough, you know, and the music just didn't fit the tone and the pace of the movie, so it was just kind of weird. But the movie itself was really cool, so I highly recommend checking out Orphan Killer if you can find it anywhere. You know, otherwise, those are the ones I recommend. You know, I've really grown to appreciate the work of like Ty West in terms of House of the Devil's slow as hell, and I don't think that the payoff at the end is worth watching the whole movie, but I like how the movie feels. I like the mood that he creates, and I enjoy The Innkeepers. Although I still feel like the end of that is kind of, you know, uh, I don't know if I'd call it a cop out, but it's just kind of, it's like he came too quick, you know, when you build as much tension as he does. So I do recommend his work, but I'll tell you, I was super disappointed with VHS. And I, you know, I've always been a big supporter of Bloody Disgusting and Brad Miska over there because I've known him personally for a few years. And I felt like VHS fell flat, especially considering what, you know, what they had at their fingertips to do. They had a decent budget. They had a great concept. I think it's an incredible concept. And I just felt like it sucked, you know? And ABC's of Death was horrible. There was maybe 3 of the 26 shorts that I enjoyed. So I feel like there's this tier of independent films right now that are at like the $1.5 million budget range, like the VHSs, The House of the Devils, The Innkeepers, Lovely Molly, not Flogging Molly, Lovely Molly, where I think that they're quality films. They have good production design. The cinematography is great. I like the mood that they create. But overall, I feel like a lot of them fall flat. And it's like, I don't know if these guys are just giving up. And I don't know, maybe that's just me being an asshole. But, you know, I'm very critical of people who actually get a budget to put together a quality film because I haven't had that opportunity to yet. And I'm just waiting for that chance. Let's see. So I would say check those out. Look for the stuff that's out there that isn't being promoted by Bloody Disgusting, that isn't being promoted by Fangoria. Look at the stuff that Dread Central's got going on and the stuff that smaller websites like HorrorSociety.com, you know, the independent stuff that's out there. Those are the films that you want to check out because those are the ones, and they're hard to find, but those are the ones where it's filmmakers truly trying to, you know, create passionate work and, you know, showcase their talents to a bigger crowd so that they can get the money to do stuff like what Ty West and those guys are doing. Let's see. Maybe speaking out of turn, but Alive, It's My Party, I'll Die If I Want to, Choose Your Own Death would be awesome. Let's see. I don't know what Three Corpse Circus is, but I'm interested. At the moment, they're only doing shorts. I'm working on that, but there's a lot of sponsorship funding requirements to spend out to. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you should talk to me about it because it sounds cool. Just my opinion, Deadweight might be the coolest I've seen. Deadweight's a great movie, trust me. He's also in here. 2 names. Found was a good movie too. You're right. I'm also a co-host with Brian Wolford from Drunken Zombie and El Goro from Talk Without Rhythms podcast. And we have a podcast called It Came from the Underground. You can find that on Facebook as well as the Drunken Zombie Podcasting Network. We have our podcast on there. And It Came from the Underground specifically focuses on independent horror films and their filmmakers. We watch movies and we talk to the filmmakers about the films. And it's pretty much, you know, for fans of independent horror to find the next great horror films, but it's also out there for people, you know, fledgling filmmakers who are trying to get answers to questions and stuff. So I highly recommend any of you guys go and check that stuff out, again, at the Drunken Zombie Podcasting Network. We're also going to start featuring a Scream Queen every month called She Came from the Underground. So you'll be able to find some of the hot new actresses out there in the horror genre to be looking out for. But yeah, Found was on there and was a pretty good movie as well. I haven't seen Other. I don't know what that means. Does anybody else have any other questions? Otherwise, I highly recommend and ask that you guys go to the 8 of you, most of which I probably know already. I highly ask you guys to go to the Facebook, like Scotchworthy Productions page, like A Chance in Hell's page, like Chop Shop's page, join the It Came from the Underground group. It's a resource for independent horror filmmaking. You know, and find me on Facebook and friend me if you're not already, you know. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time, guys. It looks like we're going to cut it off here. I appreciate everybody hanging out.